This is the Wealth Junkie Show. Brought to you by CEO Capital Partners, Brendan Dukeman and Will Harvey. Your hosts deliver the daily fix you're looking for with exciting wealth-building secrets and strategies for what's working today. Listen to real-life stories straight from the mouths of some of the hottest, most successful entrepreneurs and financial freedom seekers to fuel your success addiction.
What's going on, junkies? It's Brandon Dukeman here along with Will Harvey, and thanks for joining us today for the Daily Wealth Junkies Show. We've got an awesome show in store for you today. But first, be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealthjunkies and to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss any of the awesome daily shows that we got here for you today. Without further ado, I'm going to toss it right over to Will to introduce our awesome guest.
Thank you, Brandon. So today we have Toby Salgado on the show. So he is a self-described serial entrepreneur, and every business that he's started has been pretty much centered around real estate. So without me boring you guys and talking further, I'm just going to talk to him about how he got to where he is today and what his background is. So Toby, thanks so much for coming on. We'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, sure. Well, and I should have given you a better intro. So, I'll give you my story in like 15 seconds or 20 seconds. And then everybody who's listening, you can continue to listen or jump off to something else. But, I was a kid. I was a person who, was always interested in really making money, right? That's what I wanted to do. And a lot of it as a little kid, I felt like I needed to. So we'll talk about some of the stuff I did earlier, but I did go to college, and then I got a sociology degree and a degree in religion, then went into finance, did some startups in the Valley, and then a little bit after that started my first big company at 31. In a couple of years, we grew it to 50 people. And, I made my first $1 million by the time I was 34, right? And then I doubled it. I had 2 million at 36. And by the time I got to 39, I was just under 5 million as a net worth. And then, so we can talk about it a little bit, but look, here's how it started for me was, I was, for some reason, I was always interested in making money. And the first kind of like business that I did, it wasn't a lemonade stand, I certainly mowed lawns, but what I did was one day, early day, I was sitting on my dad's toilet, right, doing what, in the morning, and he had a magazine. You should subscribe to this Mother Earth News, and it's a weird magazine, but there's nothing else to read. So I'm flipping through this weird magazine, and there's a one-page ad, and it was for toilet bowl cleaners, and it said, last 6 months. If it doesn't last 6 months, it's double your money back, right? This is a guarantee. And then you could buy some, right? You could buy like 5 of them, or you could start to buy cases of them. So, and I looked at the prices and I was like, I could buy a case for $22, right? As a kid, I had $22. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I'm just going to buy them and I'm going to return them and I'm going to double my money. That's the guarantee, right? That's what this thing just said. So I think like, God, I just cracked the code. I walk outside, I tell my parents, and they go, no, it doesn't work like that. But all day long, I kept thinking how good of a deal that was, right? Why wouldn't someone buy that? So I went to school, came back home, and I told my parents, I had like $300. And I said, hey, I'm going to buy these toilet bowl cleaners. And I explained to them why, and they said, okay, like go for it. And the more I bought, right, the cheaper it went. So I ended up borrowing like $700. I ended up buying $1,000 worth of toilet bowl cleaners. Wow. And I got them, and I was pumped, right? Because I thought everybody will buy. So anyhow, I started going door to door, and I sold them, man. I sold them, and it probably took me like maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and that $1,000 investment, right, which I borrowed some, so I found some leverage early on, but my net revenue was $1,800, right? So I made $800 in profit. Now, wow. I'll tell you, making $800 in a little over a month, and I was 9 for a 9-year-old. Well, I was like rich, right? I was like, oh my God, making money is not hard. So, I always kind of had that. I did a bunch of different things. I will tell you, I never, as a kid, I never found another opportunity like that where I was excited about it. I was pumped about it. I believed in it, and I made it work. So anyhow, I go to school. I go to UCSD here in San Diego, get 2 degrees, sociology and 1 in religion. I wanted to figure out how people thought, right? How they work. Why would they follow a Jim Jones, right? And to their death. Because I was like, if I could study these things, I could use that, right? I wanted that power. So I did not learn that power. So I went into finance, and very early on, I kind of lucked out into a few jobs, and these jobs were fundamentally starting finance companies, lease finance companies within bigger companies. We were like the bank. So I found, and the bank told me to go to big banks, right? US Bank, right? These big banks. I had no business talking to these people. I had no idea what I was doing, but they just said go. They gave me an expense account. So I learned very early on, like, what it took to start a business, again, within a business. Mm-hmm. And I found out, problems with staffing and, so I learned a lot of things doing that. And, I spent some time in the Valley starting internet companies. Didn't work. There was one company we raised $8 million for. I'll fast forward 31. I get married, and I had just come out of high tech, right? My background's high tech and finance. And I see an opportunity in low tech, in fundamentally construction. And here in San Diego, when you build a development, we don't let dirt get in the street, right? It's a big deal. There's massive fines. If you let dirt get down a storm drain, that's a $10,000 fine. So at the time, that was a brand new set of rules happening in San Diego. And I just happened through my network, somebody said, hey, Toby, the city never enforced these rules, and now they're going to start. And so I was like, whoa, let me look into this. And I wasn't that excited, again, going to low tech. But I did some research, calling companies, right? Learning doing what I learned a long time ago. And I was calling big publicly traded home builders, right? These are the big boys. And I asked them how they were handling this. And so I started a company, quickly grew it to, 50 employees, and I was making scads of money. Now you guys can jump in anytime you want. But there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we glazed over something even before. I want to dive deeper into that, but even before that, you talked about you raised $8 million for some tech startup. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so what happened there?
So, one of the things they say is, being too early is the same as being wrong. So we had, I have an undergraduate degree from UCSD, right? And not in business. As I said, sociology, religion. But I did have a bunch of people who were at the time at Stanford going through their MBA program. Now, this is 97, 98. It was a long time. I don't know how old you guys were in 1997, 98.
Yeah.
But at the time, VCs
we were young.
Yeah, I figured. You're like maybe elementary school. But, these VCs at the time, that's who they wanted to fund, right? Young MBAs. That's who they thought, because that's who was, Yahoo back in the day. Anyhow, so we came up with an idea, and the idea was basically what we know as Elance. Do you guys know what Elance, or you have a project?
No,
I'm not familiar with it, to be honest.
Okay, that's fine. I think it's called Upwork now. Do you know Upwork?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay,
I have some. Yeah,
so Upwork used to be Elance. Now we started a company called Work Exchange. So we had the right idea. And we launched it. Everybody loved the idea. Okay, hey, we're going to allow people to work virtually from anywhere in the world, right? Just upload your project, whether it's whatever you want done. The deal was, there was, at the time, right, there was no PayPal, didn't exist. There was no mechanism for us to get paid. We were relying on people to find a job online and then send us a check. And people did, but it didn't work. We raised $8 million, spent the $8 million, and then we couldn't raise any more money.
So essentially, you were ahead of the time.
We were way ahead. Way ahead. And I'll tell you, here's what I will tell you. There's 2 companies that I've done that have failed. That one in 1998, and then another one called Task Heroes. Same thing. I launched it in 2011. Right. I thought the timing finally was right for this idea. Right. The unemployment was. Didn't work. Those are my two failures.
So
Same idea.
What was
12
that
years.
company?
It was the same idea.
Oh, okay. It was the same idea. Got it.
It was the same idea, but at the in 2011 we wanted to go hyper local. So what is something that that you actually need to find somebody in your town? But it's again, So I mean, anyhow?
Yeah. I got you. So
Yeah.
what did you mentioned you started the company that educated people on the fines and you had a lot of success with that, right?
Yeah.
The construction thing.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you started that and how you got it to be as big as it was.
Here's what I did is, and I've done this a bunch of times with different companies. So basically, when I wanted to find out what was happening in the market to see if there was an opportunity, I lied a little bit. So, I started calling, number one, my potential targets. Again, publicly traded home builders. So KB Homes, I don't know who you guys have out there but publicly traded home builders. And I was calling them and I said, hey, I'm from a magazine. Right. And it was like B&T Technologies. Again, I just came out of the Valley. So I said, hey, we're doing an article on this. We know the rules just changed. And I want to find out what, tell me your experience. So number one, here's the advantages of me doing that. So I was calling from a magazine, writing an article. So number one, I got to the right people. Very quickly, they said, oh, this is the right person to deal with that, which is important for later. And so they said, oh, it's Tom Jones. So I get to Tom Jones. I get to talking to Tom Jones. I kind of get a feel for Tom Jones. But again, Tom Jones thinks I'm a reporter, right? So he's relatively, he wants to be named in a magazine article. So, and then I started saying, well, who do you use to do this? Well, what kind of thing do they charge you? And then my always last question was, hey, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of people out there for you to choose from. If there was somebody new, would you use them? And the answer was always yes. So I found out who they were using, what their hot buttons were, and then if there was an opportunity there. So I started calling my potential targets, getting that information. So once I got that information, and everybody said, yes, we would like another person to use. Because there's only 2 companies doing it at the time. So then I knew there was opportunity. Then I got into the tactics. Okay, once I start this, what do you charge, right? How does it all work?
Right.
So then I went to my competitors, but doing the same thing. We're writing an article. We've talked to Tom at KB. I know you work with KB Homes. Can you talk about some of your pricing structures? Tell me some of the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis in running this company. So I got all this in. So now I had all the information. I knew where the targets were, and I knew what these guys were charging, right? I went down and visited them at their yards, right? We talked to them. And then, dude, I literally picked up a phone. By the way, when I was calling him as a reporter, right, as writing a magazine article, I said it was B&T Technologies. Okay, that's what I kept saying. When I launched it, that was the company name, B&T. It's called Erosion Control. Okay. So all of a sudden I call them and I go, hey, this is Toby from B&T. Like, they always took the call because they're like, oh, that was that magazine guy, or somehow I recognize that. And then all of a sudden and nobody asked me. Nobody said, hey, are you that guy? Whatever. So I armed with all that information. It took me 2 years to become number 2 in the market, and we locked everybody else out.
So what? Yes.
Did you come up with? Did you make that strategy up? Did you learn that strategy, or is that just kind of from experience and hustle that you came up with that?
Yeah, you know what it was. It was when I was implementing lease finance programs right out of college. I learned very quickly that it was really hard to get to the right person, because again, I was calling organizations like US Bank. Sometimes the person I would call, right, the person answering the phone had no idea who the right person was. So I figured I had to figure out a strategy to get to the right people. So
get through the door, the gatekeeper, as they say.
That's right. Get to the gatekeeper, identify the right person, and the right number and the right extension, all that. So, the only way to do that is to really not sell something. So, I learned a couple things. So number one, I learned to plant seeds for somebody else to say, yeah, it's this guy. I think if anybody wants that, number one, I think everybody should utilize a strategy at some level if they can. But here's one of the things that I've learned is, oddly enough, it's easier to get to somebody like the CEO, right? So, or the VP of sales, right? Like in a big organization, because number one, you kind of know who the VP of sales is. You know their name. And what I have done is nobody goes after, like guys like you and me and everybody else, they don't reach out to the top guy, the CEO of that $1 billion company. Okay. So I have found it's easier to get to at least the voicemail box or to get to the assistant to that VP of sales or CEO. And a lot of times that assistant will know. So I will call into the CEO, I'll get their assistant, I'll tell them what I'm looking for and what I'd like to talk to the CEO about. And here's what happens. So usually the assistant go, oh, this Harvey's not the right guy. You should talk to Rick Smith in purchasing. And here's his extension. So then I go, okay, now I just know the right guy. And then what I would do is I would call Rick Smith. But what I would say is, hey, Rick, Toby Salgado here from, such and such company. And then I would name the CEO, Jimmy Johnson, CEO, and he's told me to call you about this. And I always got a return phone call.
So and that credibility, name dropping,
right. But it's easier to get referred from the top down than the bottom up. A lot of people start at the bottom and they go, oh, well, I'll go to this guy and I'll work my way up the ladder. Mm-hmm. People do not do that. If you're a project manager, you are not, and the VP of sales, you're not going to say,
right.
Always try to get referred from the top down. It's way easier.
Got it.
Took me a couple of years to learn that one.
Yeah, that's great advice. So with that company, what did you do? I imagine that you sold it. Is that right?
I did not sell it. No.
Oh, okay.
Dude, 2008 happened. So see, this gets into my story. Okay, so 2008 happens, right? Again, I was working with publicly traded home builders. 2008 happens. They're not buying land anymore. Now they're selling land because they're not building houses, right? So very quickly, what happened was, when the opportunity started to shrink, there was more people competing for that same opportunity. And what happens is when there's a lot of competition, the margins go down.
Right.
So we were operating at a 40% margin, and then people now were bidding at a 10% margin. And I was like, I'm out. It's too much risk for me. I'm not interested. So at this time, I had a bunch of cash, right? I'm sitting on a bunch of cash. It's 2009, 2010. Everything's tanking, and banks were going under, obviously, with Lehman. So we started a fund. Me and a friend started a $10 million bridge loan fund. So and we were looking for companies that had solid revenue, solid assets, and wanted to grow, but they couldn't get money from a regular bank because banks were not lending money. They were, they had too much bad debt. So we started this fund and we started doing bridge loans. And we were making a boatload of cash. I had $1 million early on. I had $1 million. I put $1 million in. My buddy put $1 million in, and then we raised $8 million. And I was making $100,000 a month off that $1 million for about a year.
Wow,
it ended up being like $1.5 million. But it was great. But again, here's what happened, right? 2011. That was a great business for about 18 months. The market shifted, right? Banks started to come back online. Guess what, right? The targets for us and our money didn't exist anymore. And then all of a sudden, right, the margin started to shrink. And I was like, I'm not going to risk my money on a 4%, 6%, 8% margin, right? So then I started, I started flipping houses, right? So houses were here in San Diego. I was fundamentally buying houses for the cost of the land and getting the structure for free. So I was buying up houses left and right, throwing some money in, and we were selling them. Everybody's getting FHA loans. It was anyhow. And then you know what happened, right? There was again tons. I could buy a condo for $220 and sell it for $310 in 45 days, right? Put paint and carpet in it. That's it. The margins went away. Hedge funds started getting that game. Hedge funds came in and said, because they had nowhere to put their cash. Everybody's looking at a place for their money to work. And the margin, all of a sudden it went to like, no, that now you're just making $15,000 on that. I have to invest $220,000 to make $15,000. For me, I was like, okay, no, I'm not interested. Right. So then anyhow, that's it. Then I started looking at other opportunities, and that's when I really just found podcasting.
Okay.
We can talk about what that was.
So
about.
Yeah.
for the fund that you created, where you said you put some of your own money in, is that correct?
Yeah, I put $1 million bucks.
So how did you raise the rest of the funds? Like what kind of network did you tap into?
See, that's a great question, Brandon, because it's a chicken and egg thing. This is what happens with young entrepreneurs, right? They're like, oh, I need this so I can get that. So for us, right, a lot of people, when I go, hey, you know what, if you want to become an investor, for example, and flip houses, or, go and find a deal, right? But people will say, oh, I don't have the money. I'm like, don't worry about the money. Money's everywhere. Money is everywhere. But what is not everywhere is a good, solid deal. So I would say, I told them to go find a deal first, the money will follow. So that's what we did, right? So I put $1 million in, he put $1 million. We had a little bit of money. We found a $6 million deal. So now we needed to raise $4 million. Mm-hmm. So we were lending this company $6 million. Now these guys had fantastic revenue, and they had a piece of riverfront property in Sacramento, California, that was worth $33 million. We got it appraised. So we said, hey, put that up as collateral, that $33 million parcel, and we control your bank account. So you don't do anything stupid with it, right? We during this short-term loan. And then, so we had a fantastic deal, right?
I didn't care. No-brainer.
It was an absolute no-brainer, right? Yeah. Don't pay us. That's fine. I win. Pay us, I win. Don't pay us, I win. So we had that deal, and we just took it to our network and said, hey, dude, here's the deal. Put some money up. And we raised $6 million like that. And then that same deal went from 6 to 8, and I think to like 9.25 million.
Wow.
So go find a deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find a deal, I promise you can find money for it.
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of people, I don't know if you ever did wholesaling, but that's what a lot of people do when they just start. They don't really have any money. All they have is sweat equity to put into it, if you will. And if they find a deal, someone else will buy it, and they'll get paid a piece, and then they can snowball that.
But here's the thing: how many people in real estate kind of know how to wholesale a deal, but have never done one? And I talk to real estate agents all the time that they'll see a deal, they're like, oh, I wish I could buy it, and I'm like, what does it look like? I'm like, you're stupid. Like lock it up for 30 days.
Right.
Lock it up. I guarantee you. Anyhow.
Yeah. No.
But sorry, Brandon and Will. This leads into mindset, right? And risk avoidance or not, and that's the real issue with people.
Let's talk about that. What do you mean?
Well, so I mean, look, how many people actually start off and go and do their own thing, right? Actually become an entrepreneur? Not a whole lot. A lot of people try it for a little bit, and they it doesn't work, and they go back and become an employee, right? So if you try to become an entrepreneur and then go, employee, entrepreneur, back to an employee, you're probably an employee, right? You're probably when it comes to a military organization, right? There are people that are just generals, and there are people that are lieutenants, right? And that's you got to find your right place on the bus, right? And you can't force yourself in the wrong position. So, but there are some people I meet all the time that I go, man, that guy's smart. He's sharp. He gets it. But what that person doesn't have is the risk tolerance. Mm-hmm. to go out and around, or the risk tolerance to say, yeah, I believe in this real estate deal right here, and I'm going to put up 15 grand of my own money, right? And I might lose it, right? Right? That's the kind of risk that most people can't do. But that's the kind of risk that everybody I know that's actually made it, like made big money, boom, boom, boom. They've gone out and risked it all. And risked it. I've done it many times in my career. I've worked. I risked it. I made a bunch of money. I went out, risked it, made more money. And I've also had deals where I'm like, boom, I just lost 500 grand on that deal. That hurts. I don't care who you are. Losing 500 grand will keep you up at night for a little while.
Yeah. I would assume it would. I've never been in that situation, but at some point, I would like to be in that situation just to learn, but to be able to. You learn
pretty quickly on what happens.
I don't want to be in that situation.
Right. But
Yeah.
no, I
I get what
agree
you're
with
saying,
people, you got to take that risk to get the reward that's there. And obviously, it's
100%.
risk is risk. You know, you can lose it and you can win it. So, yeah. And so you mentioned you do you found podcasting. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing in the podcasting industry.
Yeah, I think that's less interesting, but I'm happy to do it. So I started a podcast. So I told you I had two companies that failed, and the same idea done 12 years apart. So I did Task Hero, and it took me a while to build it and launch it. 2011, 2012, and the thing with an internet company like that's a marketplace, right? You need buyers and sellers, right? Somebody who has a project and somebody who's willing to do the project. So it takes a while to build a marketplace. The good thing about a marketplace is if you can build it, you can almost never kill it, right? It'll always exist, whether big or small. So I built a thing. We built the mechanic or the technology of it, and that took almost a year. And then I played with it for a year, and I just wasn't getting. Here's the thing: I built it for the wrong reasons. So I had done Work Exchange in the late 90s. 2011, I was hearing about this company called TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit, what it is if you go and buy a mirror that you don't know how to hang in your living room, you post it on TaskRabbit and you find somebody local to hang it for you. That's a great idea, right? Because you're not going to hire a contractor to come and hang a big mirror. So I was like, that's my company, right? That's what we were doing, 12 years ago. So I knew that in order to, we had tried doing that nationally, it didn't work. And I knew, I'd done it, and I knew that if it was going to work, you have to build that locally. You have to build that infrastructure. You have to do it city by city. It's not something you can build to scale because you have to have densities, enough buyers and enough sellers. So TaskRabbit had just raised like $23 million, okay? And I knew they were on like a growth spurt. So my goal, I built it for the wrong reasons. That's really why it failed. I built it to sell it. I was like, okay, I'm going to build this. It was all about San Diego, right? And it was called Task Hero because we have a lot of military folks here in San Diego. So, and again, when I launched it, unemployment was bad, right? So my idea was, hey, if you need something around the house, hire a veteran, right? There's lots of veterans that are met here. So it was a local idea. And my idea was, okay, we'll get to density. And then when TaskRabbit gets to San Diego, because again, they launched in San Francisco, then they launched in LA. I figured that their next step would be San Diego. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to launch it, I'm going to build it, and then I'll sell it to them. And, it was a good idea, and it probably could have worked, but my head was in it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
Well, why do you say that? Because I know a lot of people that build a company with the intent of selling ever before they even started it that do that.
Yeah. Well, this was a little bit different because I built it to sell it to a specific other company.
Okay. It was like two in the minutia.
Yeah, there was, because again, it was either going to be a standalone company that I was going to run, and grow with either my own money or the revenue produced from it, or I was going to bet on this one company, TaskRabbit, was going to come and buy us. And that's what I really believed. That's what I really saw, right? I mean, I was actually looking at their growth roadmap and determining my growth roadmap. And at the end of the day, a company like that, right? I could start it and get to density with my own money, right? I probably could have done it for $1 million, $1.5 million. But in order to run that, you have to go out and raise venture capital. So, and I realized that kind of early, right about 18 months in, I was like, let me go try to raise capital. And people saw it for what it was, right? These are, when you talk to wealthy people, those people are pretty smart. Typically, they're pretty smart. So, I sat down with some very smart people who were venture capitalists here in San Diego, and they saw it for what it was. They saw it for a TaskRabbit knockoff. Mm-hmm. And, I talked to them about their growth strategy, and those guys weren't interested in that. So I realized, I was like, shit, okay, I apologize. I didn't mean to curse, guys.
No, that's
okay. But I realized, look, I built it for I couldn't get funding for it. And I really, my heart wasn't enough for me to throw $1 million, $1.5 million into it to then hopefully for TaskRabbit so now you
I know.
like the wrong reasons. So,
Yeah.
so I folded it. I let it go. And at the time, I was learning a lot about technology and building a marketplace. I would find that information or talk via podcast, right? Back in 2011. And it sort of occurred to me around 2012. I was like, man, the people who got into blogging very early on made millions. They made tons of money because, that was a new medium back then, a long time ago. And it was relatively easy to get eyeballs. Now this is just internet, economics, right? And if you can get the traffic, right, you're going to be able to, sales funnel wise, you're going to be able to convert some of those people. So every person is worth some sort of dollars. So I was like, God, this podcasting thing is, I believe that it would blossom into what it has blossomed into. So I kind of started it for the wrong reason, man. I saw an opportunity. My whole career has been seeing an opportunity. And again, all those opportunities have been sort of time-based. The erosion control company was started just at the right time. 6 months later, I wouldn't have been able to grow at what I did, right? We started the COF Capital, the bridge loan company, just at the right time. 6 months later, right, it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
So I saw podcasting the same way. So I launched it thinking, oh, I'll monetize it, later, which we did. But yeah, I built it. I knew the new social currency was exposure, right? That's in today's world, that is the real currency, is exposure. If you can get exposed, if you can have an audience that listens to you, that likes you, that trusts you, that is worth money. So I started the podcast with that in mind.
Tell us about your podcast. What's it about?
Well, so here's what I did, man. So I started it in 2014. And at the time, podcasts were, very big topical, right? Entrepreneurship, sales, right? Giant buckets. Mm-hmm. Nobody had drilled down. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be the guy that drills down. So I said, okay, I'm going to talk about not just entrepreneurship, but I'm going to talk about one industry. What is the one industry? So I said, what is the one industry that is the biggest industry that needs the most help? Didn't take long to go real estate, right? And that's something I knew about, right? So real estate, right? There's millions of realtors. They all lack education. They lack training. That is what I'm going to do. So, we launched it. And for the first couple of years, I was talking to, all the top producers. Hey, what did you do? How'd you do it? What were you thinking? And in the last few years, it really has, I'm really trying to dig down into why. Right. And I want to know, I really want to know about somebody's background, right? Like I want to know about, okay, how did you grow up? Were you somebody who, did you grow up in a volatile environment or not, right? Mm-hmm. What is your mindset, right? Did you play sports? And I'm seeing sort of patterns, a lot of entrepreneurs that have made it are people that had relatively volatile, that's not the right word, but disruptive backgrounds as children. And, and those are the people who come out and they want to, they there's this fundamental belief that money solves everything. And, these people have become, Napoleon Hill talks about it in Think and Grow Rich. He says, come up with one idea, one place you want to be, and build a white hot heat of desire around that. Right. And so that's the thing that I've seen these people do. And it's really, so again, I get into
cool.
Yeah.
So it's aimed at real estate agents.
Yeah, it was. That's what I was trying to explain. For the first 2 years, it still is. But for the first 2 years, it was all about real estate. And now it's really, and now I bring on, marketing people, advertising people. Oh, nice. I mean, it's all over the place.
Very cool.
I want to go back just a little bit to where you said that if I didn't, if I had waited 8 months or whatever, it would have been the wrong time. That's where it goes back to taking that risk. You got to, when it's there, you got to decide yes or no right there.
Right then, man. Yeah. Right then. And look, let me build on that just a second. So here's what I did, right? I told you I had infiltrated these companies. Now, once I launched the company, again, as I told you, I went back to the same people. Now, here's my first break. Okay, I call a $1 billion company. I call them up and I say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about how you're handling some of this erosion control stuff, these new rules here in San Diego. And I got invited. They said, hey, come on in. We'll have you talk with Rick and Tom. I said, okay. I walk into this room and they walk me back through the office in a corridor. And I walk into the room and there's like 30 freaking people there. 30 people. I'm like, and you have to, I hope, let me explain this to you. I had never done what I'm telling people. The company that I'm starting, I've never done any of the work ever. I've never even seen it. I bought a book online for like $80 and I read it. Okay? So I walk in thinking I'm going to talk to 2 people. There's 30 people there. Wow. And they said, talk to us about, the new regulation, how that's going to impact us. And I was like, I was crapping my pants, right? I'm like, I've never done this, right? Mm-hmm. But I started talking, and very quickly I could see in the room that I knew more than them. Okay. Like I could see it in their faces that I was telling them stuff that they had not heard. Now, and a couple things happened in that moment. Number one, I felt great, right? I felt like, oh, okay, I got this.
Yeah.
But I really at that point understood how people view experts. Right? We always hear all the time, like, oh, I'm an expert at this, an expert at that. And then I talk to them and I go, dude, you don't know anything. And what I always forget, here's what I always forget is that, yeah, I might know more than that person, but that person might talk with somebody else who knows nothing and they're the expert. So all that's required to be an expert at anything is to know more than the guy that you're talking to.
Absolutely.
So it was and I've used that. I know that sounds basic and simple and all that stuff, but I've used that realization many, many times to my advantage in my career. So I walk into this room, 30 people. I talk to them about all the stuff that I knew how to talk about. And boom, boom, I'm walking out of the room. I'm like shaking hands and I'm happy. I'm like, shit, I'm going to get out of here. Right. I didn't get eaten alive. And I do my thing and I'm walking out of the room and a guy stops me and says, hey, I'm starting this new project in Eastlake. Do you want to do it? And I said, of course. So I go down there and he shows me the plans. Now, again, I knew all the pricing. Okay. I knew the pricing from my competitors. So I put together, I came up with a proposal, and it was like $42,000. Okay, now you guys, they say go do it, right? I could have put $100,000. Now knowing what I know now, back then I could have put $100,000 and they would have said yes. But so it was $42,000, and I figured out, I won't get into how I got the materials because it's not something you can't go down to Home Depot and buy it. I had to go 2 hours away to buy this stuff. So I didn't have anything. Okay. I didn't have a truck. I was driving a Suzu Trooper. Okay. I didn't have a crew. I didn't have any people. And I just bid this $42,000 worth of work. I literally went down to Home Depot. I got laborers, because here in San Diego, there's always laborers at Home Depot. Yep. I got a bunch of laborers, bought them hard hats, went down and did it. And again, people who don't know anything, I don't know anything, but I just put in the hard work and we did it. It took us a week and a half to do that project. Okay. A week and a half. I paid everybody cash and I did the numbers. I made $26,000 in a week and a half using laborers from Home Depot. Okay. Great. Wow. Super. You're a winner, Toby.
And the work was good?
Yeah, the work was great, but hold on. So then I give the company, this $1 billion company, the bill, and they go, okay, I need your contractor's license. I didn't have one.
Oh,
I need your insurance. I don't have it. Right. So that's fine. I got it. Right. I went to a friend who had a contractor and I said, hey, I'll give you this much money. Let me use your license. Right. We'll get your insurance. So I figured out how to do it, but that's the whole point of the story. Right. I went and got a $42,000 contract and I didn't have any of the infrastructure. I didn't have a truck. I mean, I was going and renting to haul stuff around. I had a U-Haul rental truck. Do you know how janky I looked?
Yeah.
But it doesned matter.
But you said yes, and then you figured it out.
Exactly right, Brandon. I said yes first, and then I said yes first, and all I did was the next step. Okay, great. I need labor. What's the next step? Next step. I didn't worry about how to get paid or if I was going to get paid or any of that crap. until I was ready to get paid. And this is the problem that people put in front of themselves that makes them not react, makes them not jump off towards their dreams. If they're like, okay, I want to figure it all out. Okay, I need to get a license. Shit, that's going to take me 6 months. I need to get insurance. I don't know how much money is that. Right? They think they have to do this whole plan. Don't. Just go. Just jump. You know what? And figure out the next. All you have to figure out is the next step along the way. That's it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's true. And like Will always says, you know, the analysis or paralysis by analysis. You're sitting there trying to figure out the whole plan when you just need to freaking go up there and do it.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
All right, Toby, we're going to hop right into our moments of truth. It's the same 7 questions that we ask all of our guests here. And I'm kicking it off with the first one. Who is your success role model?
Oh my God. Dude. So it's changed along the way, right? My first success role model was Tony Robbins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tony was just telling me that I could do it, right? You can do it. You can be anything you want to be. You know, you want to have an island in Fiji, just will it to happen. So my first kind of role model was Tony Robbins. Yeah, they're not people. I've never had in my life. Let me preface this whole thing by this. What I will tell people is be careful of meeting your heroes. Be careful of meeting your heroes, because when you meet your heroes, you're going to find out a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't know. You're going to find out they're not as smart as you maybe thought they were. Mm-hmm. You know,
That's good.
Be careful of meeting your heroes. So, and here's the reason why I say that is because, you know, I've had people, I'm like, yeah, that's my role model. I want what this guy has, right? This is the guy, you know, and then I get to know them. This is one thing I'm actually really good at is if there's somebody, I'm good at getting to the people I want, and I'm likable enough that I usually can stick around. Once I meet them, I usually, you know, they invite me along. So I've done that along the way, and the people that I admired, you know, I stopped admiring them. Once I got to know them, I stopped admiring them because they just became people. And I started to see all their faults and failures and, you know, oh, you don't have it together in that. I thought you had, you know, your marriage together, right? I thought you were all, you know, and then I meet you in person. I'm like, dude, you're like overweight, man. I thought like you were physically fit, right? I mean, I thought you're, you know, so, and that's fine. If you're,
that's good.
You know, so yeah, be careful meeting your heroes. And so my heroes or my role models have all been people who've written books where I can only get to know one piece.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What's your biggest success?
You know what? My biggest successes are always wrapped in with a moment of almost complete doom. I'll tell you, I'll give you a quick example. Damn, I'll try to do this in 3 minutes. I put myself through college painting houses. So I always had a company, right? Like in college, you know, I was making about 10 grand a month in the summer painting houses. And then I didn't have to, you know, I was making like 40 grand a year, making a lot of money as a college kid.
Yeah.
You know, and I did, so anyhow, so I was painting houses and I always had about 10 employees. You know, I had 2 crews, about 10 employees. And there was a payroll period, a 2-week period. I came up and I didn't have any work. Did not have any work. I had 10 guys and I had no work. So I was like, crap, you know, these guys are relying on me, all that stuff. So I said, guys, look, we don't have any work for the next week. Okay. So you're going to have to take next week off. And everybody grumbled. I don't want to. And I said, no, you have to take next week off. Okay. So everybody finally agreed. So now I had that weight off my back, but I didn't have any work. So I got down, me and the team, we went door to door in the neighborhood, knocking doors saying, listen, we're painting houses right down the street. Would you like an estimate? So on a Saturday, we had teed up like 6 estimates, back to back estimates. So I go to my first estimate, booked it, closed it, right? And the guy signed the contract and he said, hey, I need you to start Monday. And I said, no problems. We'll start Monday. Now, you got to remember, I told the team we didn't have any work and I made them take the week off. And then I went to the next one. They signed. That day was the most successful day of almost of my sales career because all 6 of those people signed. I back to back signed 6 contracts. And then obviously they said, every single one said, when can you start? So as soon as I booked them, I'm super pumped, right? I booked like $20,000 worth of work. And now we had our next 2 weeks booked up. I call the team and I go, hey guys, we got work. Let's go. And they're like, no. I committed to doing this. And I said, no, you can't. You got to cancel that, right? You got to go. And then it got to, there's always, and I learned a lesson here, right? In a group, there's always one sort of ringleader, right? But it may not be completely apparent all the time, but there's always one sort of ringleader who kind of just, there always is. So that was the guy that became the crux. And he said, no, I'm not going. I'm doing this other event. And I said, dude, if you don't go, you're fired. Right? Like, again, this is not good. This is really crappy management. But I was a kid, right? I was in college. You show up or you're fired. And he said, I'm not showing up. I said, okay, fine, you're fired. And dude, this guy, the bottom line is I had, I think it was probably 8 employees. I fired every single one of them.
Oh, wow.
They said they weren't going to show up. I fired every single one of them.
That's funny.
So at one point I had a bunch of workers and no work, and now I have a bunch of work and no workers.
Wow.
But I had told everybody we're starting Monday. So I literally, at the time, right, the newspapers, I put an ad in the newspaper. I just started interviewing people. And this kind of like ties into what I did later in my life with all those labors. So I ended up over the weekend hiring a bunch of new guys who had never painted before, put them on the crews. And dude, I managed it. And we completed all. I called my brother in. I flew him in from Northern California down to San Diego. And dude, with a brand new crew, we completed the $20,000 worth of work, and we got paid on it. And I can tell you that once I finished all those 6 jobs up, there was something that I knew in my mind and in my heart. I knew, right? Not believe, not thought. I knew that I would never go hungry.
That's awesome.
I can always go door to door.
Yeah.
Find something. And that belief, that true belief going, I will never go hungry, is the thing that has allowed me to take bigger and bigger risks in my later career. Because I believe, I was like, okay, I might lose $500,000 here, but I'm not going to go hungry. I'm not going to go to zero. And if I do, I can get myself out of it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
What's a typical day for you look like?
Dude, you don't even want to know, man. Typical day. You know what? These days, it's pretty mellow, man. Dude, you don't want to hear it, man. I drive to school. I do some work.
What time do you wake up? Yeah.
So I wake at 5:30.
Okay. It's a pretty early riser.
And what time you go to bed?
Well, I'll tell you. Well, hold on. Let me answer that more fully. Okay. So I go to bed about 10 or 10:30. Right. I probably fall asleep around 11. But so I try to get 7 hours of sleep. I really do. But I wake up at 5:30. One habit that I do is I meditate, and sometimes it's so hard sometimes to take. I use Headspace 10 or 15 minutes, but I just meditate, right? Nice. And it really it's about what and it's really about what I want to accomplish that day. Do I want to focus on being happy that day or finding focus, right? Or and I could sort of set. I'm older than you guys. If somebody would have told me this when I was 27, 28, where I would have said, shut up, man, or 24, however old you guys are. But so I set my intention for the day, and then I go about my day, and again, it's just work. I do different stuff. One day I might be looking at a new deal. Another day I might, be looking at, how we get more exposure to what we're doing. And sometimes I'm going, hey, here's a new little niche. From our podcast, we have a radio and television arm. So we put agents on radio and television. We have a little coaching arm. We have, I have a product. I have a product copy and send, right? And it's, so I have a lot of little stuff that just, I might earn $1,000. There's a lot of little passive income things that I might be working on. But the other piece of my day, there's sort of 3 pieces. So I always try to meditate. I always try to eat like 200 grams of protein. Okay. And then no matter what, at about 4:45, 4:30 to 4:45, I go to the gym. I spend an hour at the gym.
Nice.
It's super important, man. It allows me to clear my head. And then you guys don't want to hear this, but this is where if I was 24 and listening to me, hopefully I'd go, hey, that Toby guy's pretty smart. Toby's got, he's got it together, which I do. But here's what I'll tell you. I also believe that money is sort of would solve everything. I thought, more money, more better. And it was always more money, bigger, bigger, bigger. And probably 4 years ago, it stopped, I, making a lot of money, right? If you make $1 million, the first time you make $1 million in a year, you're going to go, God, that is, oh man, right? I can buy anything, go buy an airplane, I can do whatever. And that's great. And then the next year you make $1 million and it's not that big of a deal. And it sucks, but it's not that big of a deal because for me, like I've done it once, right? It's like climbing Eiger, right? I climbed Eiger. Okay, that's great the first time, but the next time you're like, yeah, I just did Eiger again. Okay, why'd you do Eiger again? You did it once. Do something bigger, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I was chasing that for a long time, and dude, I started drinking too much, man. I instead of working out, I was like, because I had so many moving parts, right? Like different investments everywhere that like my head was always spinning. And I would start to drink. And anyhow, I started drinking too much. And this is going to tie into my day. But so I started going to AA. I went to treatment and started going to AA. So I work out. It's good for my body, but it's also good for my brain. It gives me a break from my busy brain. I can only think about, and then I go to an AA meeting and it's the same thing, right? I don't really learn anything new, but I hear all sorts of crap, but it gives me a chance to hear other people's stories and not think about mine, right? I can think about your story, Brandon, and go, okay, I can use my analysis brain and apply it to your problems instead of mine. So that's really been helpful for me. It's a different kind of meditation.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm actually 6.5 years without drinking myself. And I went to AA and did it 90-90. So I'm like lighting up right now. I know exactly what you're saying. It's therapeutic. What's your favorite quote?
So it's Alexander the Great. And it's simple, man. It's fortune favors the bold. Fortune favors, and that's like it's true, man. You're not going to sack Constantinople unless you go and say we're going to fight Constantinople, right? You're not going to be number one in anything unless you go, yeah, I'm going to take down Brandon. Brandon's number one. I'm going to take that guy down. I'm going to find out what Brandon's doing. I'm going to replicate it or make it better, and I'm going to take him down, right? And that's the thing for me, right? Like this is mindset, but I was more driven by knocking you off of number one than all the benefits of that came with number one and all the problems with, I didn't think about it. I was just like, I want to be number one and I'm going to take Brandon down. And, and the funny thing for me is like the byproduct of that in many ways was money. But I wasn't focused on the money. And again, in my career, guys, whenever I've really focused on the money first, it's never worked, right? That's why those ideas that have failed on me have failed. It was money first instead of.
Yeah, you got to have a good why. So
yeah.
What are some of your hobbies?
So I'm in San Diego, so I surf in the summer and winter. Not a huge July way. I snowboard. We have a place up in the mountains here at the resort. That's mainly what I do. I have a half pipe at my house, so I'll
Nice.
I still skate.
Love it.
Yeah.
Shred it up a little bit.
I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, love it. What's the best business book you've read?
You know what? I'll tell you. I will tell you. Hold on. It's red. Here's what it is. I'll have to look it up. I'm gonna look it up real quick. It's called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet. The Ultimate. Let's see who wrote that. Who wrote it? Come on. It's Chet somebody. Yeah, Chet Holmes. The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. Here's why I love that book. Because for everybody else, there's certain things that everybody should read, right? You should read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, no doubt, no question. That's a book that everybody's got to read every year, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. Everybody should read that once a year. The Ultimate Sales Machine I like it because it covers it's a sales machine, but he's not talking about being the sales machine, right? Have you read the book?
I have not. No.
Okay. So what he's talking about is really building a company that is the ultimate sales machine. So he goes in, he certainly talks about sales. He talks about building a team. He even goes into scripts for like how to hire people. So it's a really, really well-rounded book that wherever you are in your business life cycle, there's something for you. And and this guy's really smart.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll check that one out.
Yeah.
Last question here real quick. If there was one key piece of advice you could leave our listeners with about achieving success, what do you think it would be?
It's this, man. It's people do not. Here's what I would tell you, Brandon. Or if I'm talking to you, I'd say, hey, Brandon, you need to bet on yourself, and it's okay to fail. You should try to fail. You're a young guy, right? Here's the thing. You can make any kind of financial mistake you want right now, and you will rebound. There's enough time. You could do it again. You could do it at 24, earn it back by 26, do it again, and by 30, you're on your new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can rebound from those kinds of mistakes. However, most people think they can't. But here's the mistake that people do make. People won't think very long or very hard about something like getting married. Now that's a mistake that will haunt you for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So bet on yourself.
Love it.
And don't worry about failure and think about everything short term, long term.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's great.
So wrapping up things here, how can the listeners get in contact with you if they got questions or anything?
Yeah. So I would tell everybody, go to the podcast. Wherever you are, if you're in business, there's something. We've been doing it for like 5 years, 6 years. So just go to superagentslive.com. If you really want to ask me a question or get to me, just send me an email to that same superagentslive@gmail.com. I try to get to everybody.
All right, Toby. Well, we appreciate you being on the show here with us today. I know you provided a lot of value and some good information. And for our listeners, don't forget, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies and subscribe to the show so that way you don't miss any of the daily shows and any of the awesome interviews such as Toby's here. So, Toby, we appreciate you being on the show today. And thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Toby.
Got it.
You've been listening to the Daily Wealth Junkie Show, brought to you by CEO Capital Partners. CEO Capital Partners works with business owners and executives to build passive income through multifamily apartment syndications. For more information about how you can invest in quality multifamily real estate assets and build significant streams of passive income, visit us today at ceocapitalpartners.com.